Okay, you're alive.
Okay.
You're alive. It's best to start talking so that
So what?
yeah, you're alive now. If you can start immediately.
Um, I'm at, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Cordelia Udo, the chair of ANPA PA Delaware Valley. This is our second quarter speaker forum featuring great Nigerians who are making a difference in helping Nigeria prosper. And tonight we have three great Nigerians who are going to present what they're doing. Stay tuned and enjoy. And if you have questions, you can ask at the end of the or during the presentation as we go forth. We have Dr. Idahosa and his partner that will go first, followed by Dr. Showinke, and our great, moderators, Dr. Edia, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, and Dr. Bebe Adenesu. Here we go. Thank you. So our first presenter will be Dr. Idahosa.
Dr. Udo, it looks like Dr. Ediaye may be having some phone issues, so I don't know if you want Dr. Ngozi to introduce Dr. Oyefeso in the meantime.
Okay, he's back.
Oh, he's back then. Okay. Then you can let him know that we're waiting on him.
He's taking time to join. I'm here trying to gather these people and see who can tell them to call in. Oh, he's having you're right. So, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, Masinachi, you can introduce Dr. Jefferson.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ngozi Okafor, a psychiatric and mental health nurse practitioner. So I have the opportunity today to introduce Dr. Richard Olumide Oyefeso. So Dr. Richard Olumide Oyefeso is a consultant pediatrician, a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. He serves the needs of children and families of parts of US and Canada. He was born in Nigeria and has practiced medicine in Nigeria, the Caribbean, and North America. He has a special passion for children, standing for the undeserved as well as reducing social disparities. He has served on the boards of several hospital systems and charitable foundations. aside from medicine, he has a passion for entrepreneurship, and he's a team player with a strong focus on synergy and collaboration. He is the founder of For Bread for Life, an organization fighting to save the lives of babies and mothers in undeserved countries, especially Nigeria. There is a harrowing statistics that more than 700 babies die in Nigeria every day. And For Bread for Life has taken up the challenge to change that reality. For Bread for Life engages programs that promote capacity development amongst healthcare providers and increase knowledge and awareness in the communities they serve. The organization runs training workshops focused on skills acquisitions for healthcare workers, awareness and health promotion programs for the communities. The organization also actively partners with other allied organizations to support the Millennium Development Goals 4 and 5, reducing child mortality and improving maternal health. Dr. Olumide loves to travel and enjoy multiple sports, especially swimming. He is married with 3 lovely girls and a cute son, and he spends most of his time between Canada and Nigeria. So welcome, Dr. Olumide Oyefaso.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This introductions, it almost sounds like you're talking about a stranger, because somehow I don't think I'm that special. It's a pleasure to be in your midst, and I'm also a member of ANPA as well, and I'm happy to join you here. Dr. Osamui Dahosa is also a board member of For Bread for Life, as well as Dr. Jude Ediahe. So I feel like I'm in good company. I know we don't have much time, and the introduction almost tells a significant chunk of our story. So we started For Bread for Life more than about 13 years ago, just mainly because we truly believe that we have a responsibility and a duty to save lives in Nigeria, and also the fact that when I say we, I speak for myself and many others. It was almost as if we had a free medical school in Nigeria, and it felt unfair and wrong if we did not do something for Nigeria, especially when we know just how difficult the health situation is in the country. So we decided to address this issue of infant and maternal mortality, especially infant mortality. As you mentioned, more than 700 babies die in Nigeria every day. And the core reasons why the children die center around 3 main things: prematurity, infections, and birth asphyxia. And you can imagine a child is born and the healthcare provider is unable to do basic newborn resuscitation, stimulate the baby, apply an AMBU bag, and essentially save the baby's life. So we have many babies that are falsely identified as stillbirths, and we have too many inadequately trained healthcare workers, compounded by the fact that more than 60% of our mothers don't even deliver in healthcare facilities. But we felt strongly that if we're able to train healthcare providers, that immediately creates the necessary impact, improves the standard of care, and saves the life of the baby. And so we've been at it for quite a while with a lot of significant challenges that if I were to go into details, we'll be here all night. But even though the challenges exist, we've remained dogged in the fight that we have to fight for the voiceless, and from a place of responsibility. And we've had mainly support from friends and family, and we've had to shoulder the burden of making this happen, and the inadequacy, and I'm being polite now, the inadequacy within the government space has also been a big disappointment. But we also see an opportunity for folks like us that can identify with the problem, and we're trying to, as much as possible, encourage people to work with us and join us and collaborate with us, just as an example of what is possible without jeopardizing or inconveniencing people in any significant way. That from where we are in North America, we can make a difference in Nigeria. And we've been fortunate now to also work with partners, so that we have partners in about 12 states in Nigeria in order to further the work. I would add that in addition, we sometimes run some free health clinics. We do some orphanage support, and we've also had the opportunity to facilitate open heart surgery for children in Nigeria. And all of these efforts are quite interesting and particularly impactful. We've tried to narrow our focus on things that are practical and achievable and that have a very significant impact. And based on current efforts and partnerships and just the goodwill of many people that have supported us, we have partners in Lagos, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Asaba, Enugu, Zaria, Maiduguri, Kano, Abuja, Yola. So, kind of a unique spread across different parts of the country. And we're spreading the gospel, is what I like to say, about the possibilities, and hoping to get other partners to work with us, and also trying to very hard to get people to connect to the vision. And for me, I personally, I consider myself fortunate in the sense that I did not have any control regarding the circumstances around my birth. And I could easily be any of the children who are dying there today just for the grace of God. And definitely for me, without the Nigeria's investment in me, so to speak, I would not be in the position that I am. So by extension, it will be my responsibility to do what I can in Nigeria. And our motto at For Bread for Life says, every life matters. And that is really the message that we're trying to push across. It's a travesty for a child to die in 2024 just because someone could not stimulate or use an AMBU bag. It's a travesty for that to happen in 2024. And even worse is that it's also a travesty that where these things are happening, there's no concerted effort to prevent the problems from continuing. So I'll hold my peace for now while I hear from you guys, and also Dr. Idahosa, Dr. Idiahe. I think you may have one or two things to add. I don't want to take too much time so that we can have room for interaction. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Oyefeso. I think Dr. Idia is ready now to introduce Dr. Idahosa.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that break in transmission there. I was trying to, my phone actually started acting up, so I wanted to sign on to my laptop. So my name is Dr. Edie, Jude Edie, a member of ANPA, and I'm here. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Osamu Dahusa. Dr. Osamu Dahusa is an attending critical care physician, an attending physician in critical care medicine at St. Luke's University Hospital in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, as well as an adjunct clinical assistant professor of medicine at Temple University School of Medicine in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Dr. Idahosa completed his undergraduate medical training at the University of Benin, Nigeria, where he graduated with MBBS in 1999. He went further to complete his internal medicine residency training at Abington Memorial Hospital in Abington, Pennsylvania, and then fellowship in critical care medicine at the University of Pittsburgh, popularly known as the Mecca of critical care. He's currently board certified in internal medicine, critical care medicine, and neurocritical care medicine. He's a fellow of the American College of Chest Physicians. His research interests are focused on the development of clinical guidelines/protocols in neurocritical care and in critical care education, as well as ICU organization and management. Dr. Idahosa is currently the coordinator of Critical Care Grand Round Series at St. Luke's University Health Network. He's an instructor of Fundamentals of Critical Care Support, FCCS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support, ACLS, as well as Emergency Neurological Life Support, ENLS. Dr. Idahosa is one of the founding members for Bread for Life, which you've heard a little bit about from Dr. Yefeso, and also currently one of the board members, the board of director, members of the board of director, yeah. For Bread for Life is a non-profit organization, as we've previously heard, that focuses on propagating simple, effective, and replicative interventions in newborn babies and children with respiratory failure in countries with poor resources, especially Nigeria. Over the past decade, more than 2,000 healthcare providers in more than 10 states in Nigeria have been trained through For Bread for Life, with more than 1,000 resuscitative equipment donated. Dr. Idahosa is currently the vice chairman of ANPA, the Pennsylvania/Delaware chapter. He's a lifelong Arsenal fan. He spends his free time watching soccer, reading, traveling, and spending time with his wife and 3 beautiful daughters. Dr. Idahosa can be reached at oidahosa@gmail.com and Twitter at Idahosa Osamu. Thank you for allowing me to introduce Dr. Idahosa. Over to you, Dr. Idahosa.
Well, thank you so much for that nice, for that awesome introduction, Dr. Diaye. I'm really honored to join with Dr. Yefeso to tell you guys about this organization that we belong to. Dr. Diaye is actually part of the organization also. So for Bread for Life, you know, we had some slides, but I'm unable to share anything right now. But it's four, like figure 4, breath, BREATH, 4 again, then life. And I really enjoy all of you to go to www.forbreadforlife.org, and you kind of get a feel of all the things we've done and stuff. I'll let Dr. Yefeso do most of the talking, but suffice to say, in 2011, 2012, Dr. Yefeso came to meet me or called me one night, and the only thing he was saying to me was 700 babies in Nigeria die every day. And we kept on talking and talking, and every 5 minutes we said 700 babies in Nigeria die every day. He kept on emphasizing on those few words, and it was like, what are we going to do about that? And that was really the bedrock, and that was that was where this organization started from. We started for Bread for Life, and initially and basically the whole idea is, why do these babies die every day? Because they die more from birth asphyxia. And from the Happy Babies Breed program, we realized that simple tools like provision of amber bags, suction material, and in particular, knowing how to use those tools, you should be able to prevent these things from happening. I remember the first time Dr. Ifeso told me, and I was like, why are you coming to meet me? I'm an adult intensivist. I'm a resuscitation expert, but I deal with adults. I don't like children. It was like, it's not a matter of being a pediatrician or being an adult doctor or whatever. Any person can save these lives. Any person can be trained on this Helping Babies program. And we need to just focus, get our own training, and then go over to Nigeria and see how we can help people. And that's how we initially we put funds together, started getting got a partner in China, a learner, and got our initial amber bag suction material from there, and then recognized some partners in Nigeria, went over. I think our first program was in Ogun State then. They subsequently went to Edo State, went to Lagos, they went to different places. And basically we get these materials, we go there and train the providers over there on how to use it. And, and this started 2011, 2012. And, over the past decade, we've been able to train more than 4,000 healthcare providers. We've had our imprints in more than 10 states in Nigeria, and we've donated many, many resuscitative materials. We've even found out lately how to get those resuscitative materials in far, far cheaper manner from Nigeria there. So, in all these, we've had partners here and there, but, on a personal note, I would like to really praise Dr. Ifeso for his passion and his enthusiasm and his perseverance over the years. There have been times when, with all the Naija, Wahala and stuff, some of us were discouraged, but Olumide Ifeso has always been like, not getting deflated, propping us up, and always reminding us on who we're doing this for, which is the babies over there that are dying. So 700 babies die every day. How do you do something about that? So Dr. Ifeso, I want you to continue and talk a little bit more about For Bread for Life and how we've been able to engage people lately.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Idahosa. I think it's just important to stress about, if I could put it this way, say doing great things from a small place. It's kind of how I look at it. We're in a system. Most of us in North America, we can see the difference where there's a comprehensive system to care for the lives of individuals, and unfortunately, we are dealing with significant leadership failures on several levels. But I really truly believe that the diaspora remains an amazing force for good in Nigeria, working in partnerships with providers back home, because essentially that's what we're trying to do with For Bread for Life. That because we have so many good-natured providers still there in the country working in the trenches, and what we try to do is to position ourselves as partners with them, that we're working together to protect the life of the Nigerian child. And it's been quite interesting, and like Dr. Dow said, quite challenging on many levels. But part of the gratification we have we've trained over 4,000 providers in different parts of the country and still going. And we know for a fact that those people, wherever they are in Nigeria, they're literally soldiers who are helping to change lives. And there has to be someone who will, speak for the voiceless. And I'll also add that, unfortunately, there are many entities and many people who are working in silos. There are many people doing in different things, both individually and collectively, but working in silos. And part of what we truly try to push is really about collaboration, working together with other entities, because no one can do it alone. And we have to build more bridges rather than build more walls. We're hoping to expand efforts, hoping to get more partners, and just finding ways to move forward. We also are engaging members in the Pediatric Association of Nigeria and Nigerian Society for Neonatal Medicine. And also, to be clear, because many of these deliveries happen in the community, it's so important to have a different approach whereby, institutions out there can't just stay within their walls expecting the people to come to them. We really have to, always find ways to engage the community. So we train doctors, nurses, midwives, community health extension workers, and even traditional birth attendants. Believe it or not, traditional birth attendants are a force for newborn care in Nigeria still in 2024. And, the service they provide, it's still very relatable to many of our people. So that, it's also important to engage them, at the same time placing the necessary limits and regulations and regarding what their skill sets are and things like that. So I'll be happy to hear from you guys. We're happy to answer questions, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak with you. And I am excited that, for sure, even just based on our interaction, some other people's lives will be saved as well, and that in itself is priceless. Thank you.
Wow, great talk. Our moderators, you can continue with the questions. I have a question though.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on easy ways that an ordinary person, a non-health care person, can apply to limit bed asphyxia? You said bed asphyxia is the leading cause of that 900 deaths of infants every day. What can someone do? Just something practical.
I think at the core, it still comes back to resources. So manpower, finances, connections. So a lay, and you don't have to be a doctor to be supportive. You can donate to the cause, and also we encourage people to to connect us to people who can drive the work. A lot of this is related to connect a lot of personal contacts, and then even people who volunteer within communities, those who are influential within the communities. Another way is a part of what we were hoping for, and there are so many things that we know we can do, but we're just limited by resources, and raising awareness. One of the things that we feel is critical is that it's important to raise awareness amongst our mothers, amongst our women. So so someone can, someone can also support in that way. How are we pushing the message out there that uh, if you're a woman and you want to have your baby, you need to think about certain things. Where you're going to have your baby, at the place where you're going to have your baby, would they be able to take care of their babies if there's a problem? Is there an emergency plan in place? Do they have the right equipment? Certain questions mothers need to be aware of, because both the life of the mother and the child are in danger. So she needs to be able to make an informed decision regarding where she needs to have her care. So those are just some of the things, and I'll close by saying also money, money, money. And then I also forgot to mention that part of what I should add, part of what we're hoping, because we're also unfortunately learning the hard way that it's not enough to have a truth, but it's important to our world recognizes who is speaking the truth, so that we're looking, into the media space, those who have celebrity status and things like that. We're hoping to have ambassadors that can, further push the message out there. Thank you.
So what I'm actually getting at here, I'm sorry, because I didn't get it. I would think that the asphyxia, the bed asphyxia, happens mostly at home when they leave the hospital, right?
No, ma'am.
No.
It happens in the hospital setting?
No, yeah, when they are born, when the babies are born.
When they're born?
Yes.
Yeah. You'll be surprised, Cordelia, you'll be surprised. I remember the first time we went to Abeokuta to do this training. These midwives, these doctors, they've never seen an ambu bag. Over here, we look at ambu bags, you're like, oh, you just give it a respiratory. All right, respiratory, bring your ambu bag and stuff, They haven't seen an ambu bag, they haven't used an ambu bag. They don't have suction material. Those things are basic things that you think that every hospital or every healthcare center should have. They've never seen that. They've never used it. So we got those products. We taught them how to use it. We had mannequins and trained them on how to use an ambu bag effectively, on how to suction the baby and to prevent beta asphyxia. But that's why people die, because the baby comes out limp, the baby's not moving, they hit the baby on the back, the baby doesn't do anything, and then they go tell the mom that the baby is dead. Meanwhile, that baby could easily be resuscitated within that first golden minute, they call it, by resuscitation, effective resuscitation, ambu bag, suction material, and stuff. And that same baby would have lived.
Right.
So this is what's happening. So we've trained traditional birth attendants, because remember, not everybody goes to the teaching hospital to have babies. Some people go to the traditional birth attendants. We train traditional birth attendants on how to use this. We train midwives on how to use this. We've trained all these people on how to use these materials. But this is a serious thing, serious something,
That is serious. Oh boy.
So how do you know where to go for the training? Because like you said, this is serious. I had a child who had a 0 over whatever ABGA. So
0/5.
Yes. So what you're saying is actually connecting. So how do you know where to go in terms of the training? Because the country is a big country, very disarrayed.
Exactly.
So
that's a good question. Dr. Yefisa, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So the problem is very simple. The truth of the matter is that we need to go everywhere. We literally need to go everywhere. But now there's some statistics that will say, they may tell you, for example, that the situation in general is worse in the north, than the south and all that. But what we've learned over the years is that in every part of Nigeria,
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ifuso. I'm not sure if that answered the question that was it Adora that asked the question?
Yeah.
Did that answer your question? Because she asked where to go for training.
So, I mean, I think he answered her question to a large extent, but the only additional thing is we also look for partners that are on ground to be able to, because you want to go somewhere where, you're going to be able to see providers to train and stuff. So before we go over to Nigeria, we have a coordinator on ground that, kind of, make sure those providers come to the particular place where the training is going to occur.
Yeah.
And then,
okay.
and then, and then we kind of schedule like a day's training, or at times we've done like 2-day training. We train them on how to use the materials. We provide the materials for them, and actually we leave them with some of the materials.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jefferson, Dr. Idausa. Any more questions?
My hand has actually been up.
Oh, sorry.
But
sorry, I just saw it now. Sorry. Go ahead,
just jump in whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm actually the moderator, so I actually should have seen your hands up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
So, Dr. Jefferson, I think you should be made a major speaker to encourage the Nigerian diaspora about believing in Nigeria. You talk about Nigeria as if you are so optimistic about Nigeria, and it's really quite impressive. In your opening remarks, you highlighted some challenges. We all know there are challenges in all areas of life in Nigeria. You mentioned the lack of training, which is part of what we're discussing here. You mentioned lack of equipment, lack of finances, inadequate finances. When you were talking about government regulations, you said something about you were trying to be modest or something, and yet you remain positive. I think I heard you say you are a member of ANPA. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
You are, okay. So the question I have for you is, given all the passion and interest that you have, which is really quite remarkable, do you think an organization like ANPA can actually contribute to making any difference in this particular area, or just in general delivery of healthcare to the average Nigerian? Because I think that's really one of the best things ANPA should do. And that's one of the things, priority areas that all ANPA members need to direct themselves to. So have you given any thought to that? And is there any interaction with ANPA with respect to the work that you're doing?
Okay. Thank you very much for that your insightful comments and the questions. So you say, is there any way? The answer is 2 million %. 2 million %. An organization like ANPA must be engaged in something like this. Absolutely. And also, I would add that ANPA also does some of this, during their medical mission. I know ANPA would train as providers during the medical mission. But what we have learned over the years, because we've done it for so long, so many things we understand about it, we try to open the door to active collaboration. And the challenge that exists, and I'm going to be a little bit blunt, and I don't want to offend anyone. I mean well. Part of what I have seen personally, yes, I'm an ANPA member, but I'm not as active as I would. I could be more active. I would put it that way. But what I've seen as a challenge personally is that, because we're from Nigeria, our problems in Nigeria are very peculiar, very, very peculiar. I put it this way, Dr. Kelechi. In Canada, in North America, as a physician, I'm like a nice appetizer, like a nice dessert, okay? A patient can come to me, say they've Googled something, they have an opinion, and I'm convincing them. We're even arguing sometimes and all that. Just a nice option, because at the core, most of their needs are met. In Nigeria, folks like you and I, we are the main course. Folks like you and I are everything that anybody else can get. So that our maximal attention, I believe, should be on Nigeria. And then also, as ANPA as an entity is doing a lot of good things, but to be quite honest, I truly believe that the organization is spread thin, because there are so many things going on at the same time. And of course, so many different interests, will put the organization this way. The organization's resources are challenged as well. Then even if you have 1,000 members, you may have perhaps 10% or less who are the ones actually doing the work and who are committed. Those things are consistent. But part of what I believe is that I believe that some of the things that we're doing are not the best priority and the best use of our resources, and also they're not attached to the kind of impact that is possible. That if when people see impact, see something significant, they're more likely to engage. But part of what I'm saying is that The government, even if the government is responsible, the government cannot do it alone. No individual organization can do it alone. For Bread for Life cannot do it alone. So I'm going to show you a picture in a second and say that, so how can ANPA come in? Definitely ANPA can come in, can support this in all sorts of ways, from contacts to resources and whatnot. Part of what I tell Dr. Sama and Dr. Dia is that if only I had a magic wand and I could get 1,000 people to commit to $1,000 in a year, just 1 year. For starters, it would be great for it to be every year, but let's even say 1 year. 1,000 people, $1,000, that is $1 million. We have a clear target, we have clear solutions to deliver. We can shake that nation with goodness. And it will drag some more. But part of the challenge is that we don't work together adequately. Everybody is in their own little pockets. And that's the challenge. So I'm going to show you this. I don't know if you can see my screen. This is part of what the prayer is, so to speak. So imagine, so ANPA is there. The Canadian equivalent of ANPA is CAMPAD. Then you see for Bread for Life, there, our organization. There's Pediatric Association of Nigeria. There's Nigerian Society for Neonatal Medicine. Now, my thinking is that if it were possible, now currently as we speak, I know executives in all of these organizations, and personally, I joined Pediatric Association of Nigeria intentionally so I can keep engaging them from the inside. But I say all of that to say, if all these entities can agree to work together, and without even asking, because I know that each organization is struggling, their budget, none of those organizations have enough money to solve any big problem on their own. But that if we can agree in principle, so for example, this work that we're doing, we have given it the slogan, every baby lives. That if certain individual organizations, like the ones I've shown you, can say, you know what, we're supporting every baby lives. And it's clear that that support is there. And the support can literally just be in principle, that we can use the leverage of this alignment to now push for grants, push for bigger resources in order to address the problem. Those are some of the things that I see. And I will add this. You mentioned that I'm very optimistic about Nigeria. I'm not sure optimism is the word. I'm very concerned and worried about Nigeria. It's a very dangerous situation. But I know that one thing is clear is that in spite of the challenges that we have, that the lives that we're saving, these innocent babies wherever they are, all across the country. We've trained over 4,000, now approaching 5,000 providers. We know that many children's lives are saved. And these are people who can't speak for themselves, that the system is not protecting them. But in our own little way that we're able to do that, we have to find a way to keep our focus on those children. And if you want to know what keeps us going, in spite of all the challenges, it is those children. I have 4 children of my own, and my children are very fortunate. I'm very fortunate. But my children do not have any more value than any of those children dying in Nigeria. It is the same universal value of life, and we have to protect that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So you say that ANPA is stretched thin. I can agree with you there. You also said that there are many competing, perhaps even opposing interests in ANPA that makes it even that much more difficult for it to accomplish some of the goals it is setting for itself. So you said that you're not as active in ANPA as you can be. Who knows? Maybe you need to become more active so that you can, because I'm sure, as you said, you also are you're operating with, meager resources. You would like to do more, right? But somehow you're managing, to make as much a difference as you are. So who knows? If more people like you could become more active in ANPA, maybe the organization could be directed a little bit better, because I have always believed, and I still do, that the best thing ANPA can do really is to be an effective advocacy organization for healthcare delivery in Nigeria. But that's not what they're doing. And, so I'm hoping that more people like yourself will step up, and with the hope of certainly helping to leverage the diaspora resource and deploy it in a more optimal way to make the kind of impact that we're all hoping can be made.
I'll say something quickly, Dr. Kelechi. So that all of this is not for lack of trying. So I have direct contact with the ANPA president, and also direct contact with Dr. Moses Olatunji, who is the head of the Maternal Child Health Committee in ANPA. And then during ANPA's recent health mission in Umwa here, for Bread for Life also made a donation, towards that mission. Specifically, we donated ambu bags towards that mission. So I just want you to know that that there are things going on, but perhaps not as robust as we would like them to be, based on all these competing interests. But we'll keep pushing and trying and hoping for the best.
Yeah, we still have one hand up by, is that Dr.?
Yes, I actually sent him a message, Dr. Google. So,
and this be the last question we're gonna take, because we're almost out of time. So the next speaker can come on, okay?
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. It's not really a question. I just want to make a few comments. And so I understand everything you're doing, Asamu, and I started off training as med-peds, so I kind of understand what you're talking about and the mission that you're embarking on. But, like Dr. Lawrence said, I think we can have all the good intentions and plan to do good, but I think we should focus more on advocacy and use our resources to form a strong advocacy union than to do these pockets of charity here and there that I would say it doesn't even scratch the surface of what we are doing. But if we use our resources and have a very strong presence in terms of advocacy and make, a loud noise on what we want to do, I think the whole problem of Nigerian healthcare emanates from policies. And, the people that write these policies, they come out here to get good healthcare, and the average person in Nigeria suffers. So if we form a stronger advocacy union and actually will tackle some of these problems at the root cause. And also, what you're doing is, it's very commendable. I love it. I would like to be a part of it. As a matter of fact, I'm texting my mentor, Dr. Fofa in New Jersey, the neonatologist, to tell him what you're doing. But I think we should focus more to make it to be more far-reached. I think we should focus more on making a presence in terms of advocacy. Maybe with that, we can gain some traction and have government to actually see what we are talking about and start to tackle some of these problems from the root cause, instead of just having pockets of goodwill here and there that people may not end up benefiting from.
Thank you. Can I respond to that, Dr. Ifeso?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bugu. I'm so glad that you said you're texting your mentor, because the more people we get involved, the better. So advocacy is great, but when you advocate, right, when you actually participate, when you actually take part physically in doing something as you're advocating, which is a form of advocacy itself, people will tend to listen to you and believe you more than you just saying this is what we'd like to do, or trying to pass a message to our lawmakers there who, half of them are not really well educated, unfortunately. If you've met some of them. So I remember there was this, just to sidetrack a little bit, attending cardiologist that I trained with, or he trained me. He was in Delaware and moved to Nigeria to set up his own, hospital and everything, somewhere in Lekki, doing open heart surgeries there. Dr. Idausa Oyefeso know him. He said that the reason why Nigeria have such bad leaders is that we left the country for the D students. So people who used to sit at the back of the class and never listened to, never knew what was going on. They never cared. Some of them were either, robbers or whatever. But we left the country for a better life. And we were able to come here to set up our practices and do very well. And thank God we're trying to give back. So those people there, some of them do not, it'd be hard for you to even try to convince them. They don't understand where we're coming from. We keep praying, though, that leadership will change in that country, because that will be really the beginning of transformation in Nigeria. So that's a whole different topic. That's a whole topic to talk about, and that would take us forever. But advocacy, really, for us now, has to start with, intense and sincere participation. So Dr. Yefeso and Dr. Idausa, one time when they went to Nigeria, which even then I wasn't part of for Breath for Life, they actually saw the governor of Edo State. They met with the governor, told the governor what they were doing. If you go on our website, you see pictures. I'm sure those pictures are there, right? They're still there? Yes.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We also met with the governor of Ondo State.
Ondo State, exactly.
In 2018, Dr. Akeredolu in 2019.
Yeah. And telling them exactly what we're doing and what we had brought with the resources, with the mega resources that we have. That is the greatest form of advocacy that you can do, to actually participate and tell them that this is what we're doing. How would you contribute to that? And we pray that we'd have leaders in Nigeria that would have that sense of belonging, the sense of country first, knowing that these children, as Dr. Oyefeso alluded to, have the same value as their own children. It's going to be very hard to find people like that, but I know we will, by the grace of God, as time goes on. So when you talk about advocacy, thank you very much, Eme. It's important, but the greatest form of advocacy, I want you to remember, is actually actual participation. And if you say that if anything that you really value, you find time for it. That's what life is all about. Whatever you value strongly, you find time for it. So if I give excuses sometimes that, I wasn't able to attend one meeting, even ANPA, it means that I'm sincerely not valuing it, because if I know the value in it, I'll participate more in it, which I hope to do, in so many areas of my life. So thank you so much, Dr. Yefeso. I don't know whether you want to add much to that, but we don't have a lot of time, as Dr. Udo said.
I'll just say quickly to the issue of advocacy. I think ultimately the answer to the question, like every big problem, the solutions, every big problem, the etiology is multifactorial. So the solutions also have to be multifaceted. So advocacy, absolutely. Participation, absolutely. Lobbying, absolutely. All of the above. In 2019, I just remembered that we're talking. We received this was what we received from Governor Akeredolu in 2019. Is of blessed memory, has passed away now. We had state visits with Governor Baseki and Governor Akeredolu. State visits, pictures, blah, blah, promises, name it. And I tell you categorically, zero came out of those interactions. Zero. Unbelievable. Zero. So we've come to realize that we have to keep pushing. Ultimately, it has to be clear that a skilled provider must be present at the birth of every child, everywhere. That is the simple answer. And we will keep pushing for that while we keep doing what we can. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you guys. We take our presentation as a call for help, as a plea for help, and we pray that we'll be able to get more support through you, your contacts. And I heard that you guys, I know you guys are very rich people in Philadelphia, so all the dollars you can throw away we'll promise we'll put to good use. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're grateful.
Where do we go to donate if we want,
Oh, I put in the chat our website. Our website is in the chat. And also for Bread for Life is registered as a 501c3 organization, in the US. So all your donations are tax deductible. And you can be rest assured the funds are put to good use. We are all volunteers. Literally 100% of our donations go to the work. 100%. Nobody is paid.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the website is on the chart. It's www.forbreadforlife.org, but it's there on the chart.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Do you have a social media presence?
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead, please. Dr. Yefes, go ahead. Tell about the social media presence.
Yes, we do. We're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on Twitter. Yeah, we're there as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're gonna move on to the next speaker, Dr. Shoyinka, and the moderator for that is Dr. Bibi.
All right, good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Shoyinka. Dr. Shoyinka is an award-winning psychiatrist, author, speaker, and founder of Sentia Health LLC. He most recently served as the Chief Medical Officer for the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, DBHIDS, a role which oversees Philadelphia's public mental health system. At CMD, Dr. Shoyinka leveraged health system policy and process improvement strategies to assure optimal population health for approximately 1.6 million Philadelphians. As chief psychiatrist for the city, Dr. Shoyinka played a critical role in the department response to COVID. His signature accomplishment was leading the redesign of Philadelphia crisis system and the implementation of the 988. In July 2022, Philadelphia was recognized as a model city for 988 implementation by the Biden administration. Dr. Shoyinka's work in Philadelphia was the subject of the feature article for the Kelley Business School in January 2024. Prior to this role, Dr. Shoyinka held several leadership positions. He served as medical director for Sunflower and Home State Health Plans and director for the Missouri Behavioral Pharmacy Management Program. The latter program resulted in cost savings of over $10 million over a decade. While at Centene, Dr. Shoyinka led the design of analytical software that facilitate population health management for individuals with substance use condition. He is also a co-developer for the SMART tool, which facilitates self-directed, equity-focused work within organizations. Dr. Shoyinka is a clinical associate professor of psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania and a fellow of the Philadelphia College of Physicians. He trained at Yale, Columbia, and NYU, is triple board certified, and holds an MBA from the Kelley School of Business. He served on the board of the American Association for Community Psychiatry and the Medical Director Institute of the National Council and the Group for the Advancement of Psychiatry. Dr. Shoyinka received the Special Presidential Commendation Award and the Jean Spullock Minority Fellowship Achievement Award from the American Psychiatric Association. He has been recognized as a Black leader shaping the future of psychiatry by the Scattergood Foundation. He is a regular guest speaker at state and national conferences. Please help me welcome Dr. Shoshimolu Soyinka to the forum tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you for that very kind introduction. And Dr. Idahosa and Doefeso, it was a real delight to hear about the work you're doing in Nigeria, and to hear about all the progress that you've made. That award from the Ondo State government is certainly well deserved. And I look forward to hearing more about the work you're doing. So, I'll be speaking about the work, the Curitan Foundation, which is a nonprofit that my wife and I created over the past couple of years with the specific intention of advancing population mental health in Nigeria. And some of this is the thinking around this is drawn from some of the work that we've done here in the United States. So I'm going to just share my screen now so you can take a look at the slides very quickly. So, historically, back when I finished medical school and decided to choose psychiatry, I had been the editor-in-chief for the Medical Students Journal at the University of Ibadan, which is where I trained. And one of my professors, when I told him I wanted to do psychiatry, he looked at me and shook his head and said, "What a pity." That was the mindset at the time towards psychiatry. That pendulum has really swung to the opposite end. I think COVID had God forbid that any of us see something like that again in our lifetimes, but one of the silver linings of COVID was it brought to the forefront the importance of mental health in a way that I think nothing else has done for at least a generation. So let's start with some statistics very quickly. Mental health conditions are common, and I'll share some statistics about that are particularly pertinent to those of us on this call. But they're highly prevalent. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 8 adults globally, 1 in 8 persons globally experiences a mental health condition. In the US, it's actually more like 1 in 4 or 5. And when you look at severe mental health conditions like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, it's something like 1 in 20. Substance abuse conditions are also very common. It's 1 in 10. And tragically, only 1 in 10 people with a substance use disorder condition gets treatment. Depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide. Anxiety disorders, the rates have skyrocketed among our young people. And suicide rates have been steadily trending upwards. Now, let me comment very quickly about why, we all should care about this, of course, but one of the reasons why we really should care about this is what I'm about to say. So, when you look at population studies of immigrants, those of us that are first-generation immigrants, we grew up in another country. In this case, most of us grew up in Nigeria, came here. The data is very clear. Generally, we tend to be more resilient. We tend to have good mental health. And if you can think about the level of effort that it takes to, get up and go and basically launch ourselves, go through all the exams and everything that it takes to get into the country and start to build a life here. You have to be pretty tough and pretty resilient. But what the data also shows is the second generation, that is our children, and this is not new data, this has been known for decades. The first generation offspring of those, the second generation offspring tend to have worse mental health. So our kids are vulnerable based on population data, just based on that. But this is the real reason why we should care. One of the fastest growing populations as far as suicide rates, one of the most vulnerable populations is Black kids, Black youth. The suicide rates have risen more steeply for that group than any other group. And our children are in distress. The data is very, very clear. particularly those that went through COVID. I won't beat this point to death. I think we're all aware of this, but it's worth mentioning. This is not some abstract thing. This affects all of us, whether we choose to focus on the piece of it that impacts us here and our kids, or whether we choose to focus on the piece of it that impacts people in Nigeria. Now, if you've not been tracking the data, I hate to break the news, but substance use disorder rates in Nigeria have steadily gone up. In fact, it's such a concern now that there's beginning to be the stigma, historical stigma around drug use is actually starting to about talking about drug use is starting to fade away. People are actually beginning to talk about this now. And those suicide rates that I mentioned here are replicated in fact, Nigeria is by some estimates leads the African continent in terms of suicide deaths. So I'm giving you all this data for one reason, is to help you understand that the work that Curitan has chosen to undertake is timely, and it is critical that we start to address these now. Now, unlike many other health specialties, I'm sure you've all been to parties where people, Dr. Jude, for example, is a cardiologist, and I'm sure people come up to you and say, oh, let me introduce you to my cardiologist, because it's kind of cool to have a cardiologist. Well, almost nobody ever comes up and says, well, hey, let me introduce you to my psychiatrist, because it's just not cool like that. And that's all of that to say stigma remains the leading barrier to people accessing mental health services all around the world. But the data shows, unlike what we used to believe, that, we didn't have mental health conditions, blah, 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 at least not to the same extent as here, the data actually shows that the parts of the world that carry the greatest burden of mental health disease is in low and middle income countries, Africa, some parts of Asia, some parts of South America. And we really are cooking an epidemic of drug use and suicide right now. All right, so what's the vision of Curitan? The vision of Curitan is to build a pipeline, conceptually, not very different than what the earlier speakers talked about. In fact, not different conceptually. It's basically to take what we've learned here, what's available here, the tools, resources, strategies that have been developed and deployed here, sift through those strategies and figure out which ones are best applied in our part of the world, and then create a system to be able to make those transmissions happen. But it's also a recognition that there are things from our part of the world that the West desperately needs as well. So if you're not really into the mental health space, you may not know this, but there is a form of therapy that was developed in Zimbabwe. It's called the friendship bench. Well, the friendship bench is innovative in that it takes grandmothers and it trains them to do cognitive behavioral therapy and referral to treatment. It came out of the bitter experience that many of us have had when we practiced in Nigeria. The patient died because they could not afford the transportation fare to come and see the psychiatrist. And so that psychiatrist, a gentleman named Dixon Chibanda, who's in Zimbabwe, decided he was going to train grandmothers, equip them to do things that in this part of the world would take 6, 7, 8 years to train a therapist. He did it in a few weeks. Well, he got such good results that the New York State Office of Mental Health adopted that and implemented it in New York. And Canada has taken that model and has deployed it all across the country. They call it the Yellow Bench in Canada. So the point here being, we tend to think about this as one-sided. We've trained here, we've learned all this stuff, we want to give it back to our people in Nigeria. Good. But I want us to keep in mind that there are things that have been developed in our parts of the world that are pretty innovative and that may apply just as well here. This friendship bench being just one of them. So that's our vision. And the mission, which is still unfolding, is to create a suite of, or a package of very carefully chosen tools, evidence-based approaches, and scale those across the continent, specifically starting with Nigeria. And I'm glad to say that that work has begun. So I talked about this. Let me stop sharing my screen very quickly. Well, actually, let me go on. So in terms of advocacy, what are some of the tools that the comments were made about advocacy and the need to not just stop at talking, but actually doing stuff. So last year in December of 2023, we took a team of people to Nigeria from here, and essentially we engaged on 4 levels. So first of all, we engaged the academic institutions, went back to the University of Ibadan, which is where I trained, and did a joint conference with them. Basically took experts from here down there to talk about, and it was a joint conference. We had experts from there also speak about their work. I see somebody's hand is up. I will come back to you in just a few minutes. But we also engaged the government, as the previous speakers have said, understanding that you can't really get anything done without government support. And then we engaged the faith community, because when it comes to scaling things or particularly when it comes to matters regarding mental health, it's very important that the faith community be engaged, because they are the first port of call for anybody who's seeking help. Generally, people go to their faith community. Now, this is I'm just going to share this very quickly. This is a documentary that was made. So these are just So I'll stop there, but basically a documentary was made out of the work that we did in Nigeria last year. And I'll continue with the talk now. Now, that was one important intervention, but another critical intervention was publishing this book. Now, again, one of the biggest challenges for when you talk about mental health is stigma. And if you look at the research, the stigma is actually pretty strong. When you survey clergy, they tend to mirror the rest of the population. So people experiencing depression, anxiety, they've been abused, they have trauma, they have a loved one that's developing psychosis. They go to their clergy, and very often the response is not what you hope for, and sometimes it's downright abusive. So this book was written, published last year. It's called Understanding Mental Health, A Guide for Faith Communities. It's available on Amazon and on BookBaby, and I encourage you to check it out and get a copy. It's an easy read. It's 100 pages. You can finish it in 3 hours, and it's pretty much is really demystifies the subject, something that's a pretty complex topic, makes it very simple. 7 chapters, goes over the origins of mental health conditions, of common mental health conditions like depression and anxiety, the role of medical conditions in causing sometimes or contributing to the onset of mental health challenges, how these conditions are treated, getting help and what to expect, promoting wellness. And for those who subscribe to a faith tradition, it talks about how faith and medicine do not have to be in opposition to each other, and you can actually integrate them. So I encourage you to check it out. But this is a tool, or the intention behind this it's intended to be a tool to demystify mental health conditions and reduce stigma. And like I said, it's available on Amazon. This is a picture with some of the folks that we worked with Professor Waje is a well-known researcher and academic at UI, somebody I've known since I was a medical student and really just a force now. This is Dr. Len Miller. He is the Global Director of Mental Health, Director of Global Training for the Beck Institute, which does CBT. We trained 400 people in CBT last year, December, and this is Dr. Wright, who's the new deputy commissioner for the city of New York, and a friend and a colleague. So that's a summary of what we've done so far, what we hope to do. Now, next future steps, and these are things we've already begun to work on, training clergy as first responders, and what I think of as population health strategy. So when you think about mental health, people often default to, let's build more hospitals, let's get more beds, and that's important to some extent. But I promise you that is hitting it's important, and Lagos is doing something like that. But the more important thing is to demystify mental health and give the population themselves tools to help themselves. So when you look at things like suicide prevention and STD prevention and treatment. So that's the work we're doing. For those of us, because we're here in Delaware Valley, I also want to just put a very quick plug in for our practice, Sentia Health. Sentia Health is a practice that leverages telehealth to deliver mental health services. We've been in existence since 2013 and have gradually scaled. We're in several states now and are actively taking referrals at this time. So I'll stop there and invite questions from the audience. Thank you. Oh, somebody has their hand up. Scholastica, please go ahead and ask your question.
In fact, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I am listening. More have answered my question, so there's no point.
Okay, well, thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other question for Dr. Soyinka? I guess I will ask you a question. Thank you so much for the nice presentation. That's really awesome. Just to bring awareness to mental illness or wellness, whatever you want to call it, in Nigeria, because of this, I would say so much of a denier than acceptance there's mental health issues. That's from that perspective, I know building capacity, how do you envision sustaining that in our community back in Nigeria? Because we know that is difficult and there's still a lot of non-acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you. You've asked a very, very good question. And so it may not be as it's still difficult, but the thing is I'm encouraged compared to even 10 years ago. We're in a different place now. For example, the governor of Lagos State, his wife is a physician, and they have a foundation that's set up to do advocacy around mental health, which gives you a sense of where this now occupies, the space that this occupies in the minds of influencers. You can go, there's a program, Lagos Mind, which is basically a call center. There are lots of advocacy groups, and we are partnered with several of those advocacy groups now to do this work. A lot of it is not, you don't expect to see change overnight, but sustaining the effort over the next 10, 15, 20 years is sort of our goal. We plan to be doing this for a long time. And to your point, the other idea is to engage, strategically choose who we partner with. So when I mentioned the faith community, I mean, we know that Nigerians are very religious, and our faith leaders have unprecedented levels of influence. People will listen to their faith leader before they listen to their boss or governor or whoever. And so helping those folks to understand the importance of this, understand how to respond when they're faced with somebody that's in a crisis, understand how these conditions are treated and that they're not necessarily and not exclusively spiritualize them, but understand that they can be caused by stress or medication or infections and a number of things we hope will help to even reduce that stigma further and start to educate people about how to get help. Thing is, the data when people know that help, treatment works, and when they know how to get access to the treatment and you address the stigma, things tend to sort of get unstuck. People tend to actually seek help.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Shoyinka, excellent.
Thank you.
I'd like to know what actually gave you the courage to think about the pastors and these religious people, because everything you're proposing is in contradiction to what they are about. Our people prefer to pray illness away. And I'm talking about even illness that have physical manifestations. Let alone this one that is in your head that nobody is going to, they'll be telling you the Holy Spirit is going to do this or do that. And they don't believe that even the medicine that you're talking about is able to do things better than prayer. So did you have any sort of preliminary information that suggested to you that this would be, I mean, in principle, you would think these people are really powerful. So I agree with you there, but everything you're proposing contradicts what they're about. Have you thought about that, or what has been your experience in that respect?
Yes, I think those are excellent questions, Dr. Lawrence. I shared my own experience, right, with a very deeply respected professor, basically denigrating my choice of specialty 20 years ago, and things are kind of different now. I said that to say, yes, that what you said is true. The level of denial can be astonishing. And oftentimes it can be camouflaged by, a covering of faith. But there's some evidence that that's beginning to shift. So, for example, almost exactly a year ago, one of the huge church in Lagos, huge church, held a whole, conference around mental health. And we were invited to participate in that. And when you talk to, so especially the churches that are run by forward-thinking people, and not to exclude anybody or denigrate anybody, but they're starting to have the awareness that you need to be able to respond to these individuals experiencing these crises. And they're starting to do things like training people in mental health first aid, psychological first aid, and so on. So do I expect an overnight transformation so that everybody will embrace this? No. But that's never been a reason to not do something. That you have to do something. We can curse at the wind, or we can light a candle. And so we just decided we would light a candle and just keep at it. If you think about the historical antecedents, right? If you look at something like cancer or even HIV in this country, initially there's always this heavy, nobody wants to talk about this. People want to shut down their consciousness. But over time, with this kind of efforts, generally you can see movement over time. So, but beyond that, I think the basic idea is we have to do something. We can't just sit down and watch and not do anything. And it's better that this information comes from professionals, people who actually kind of had the background to talk about it than, leave the floor open to misinformation, which is what you get oftentimes otherwise.
So I didn't ask the question to discourage you, and I actually like your answer a lot. I asked a question for you to be conscious, and it appears like you already are. And in fact, you have an absolute resolve, not to be deterred by whatever um, impediments you encounter. And that's the kind of spirit that you really need to do anything in Nigeria. It doesn't matter what it is. If you say tomorrow we're going to go and provide water to people or whatever, water is easy, you are going to run into a huge amount of problem. And so if you're somebody who is expecting, people to embrace you, well, Nigeria may not be a place for you. So I like your resolve, and I want to encourage you to continue that way. Thank you.
I have two quick questions. Sorry, I've been trying to raise my hand here, and I'm having difficulty even navigating there. One is, how do you make someone with mental illness take their medications? That's number one. Number two, if you were to incorporate mental health institution in a community or health center, how can you go about it? How can one go about it? That's it.
Two excellent questions. So the first one doesn't have an easy answer because, as we know, particularly the conditions on the severe end of the spectrum, when one of the core features of any severe mental health condition is what is called anosognosia. It's a lack of insight. So people are not aware that there's something seriously wrong with them. And so they will, they will project their issues, concerns onto other people, and so on. You see that in paranoia. And another very common feature is refusing to take medication or refusing treatment. But we have to be honest, and I've done this long enough now that I've had to figure my way through this many, many times. The treatments that we offer people for mental health conditions are not pleasant. In fact, sometimes they're downright unpleasant. They make people fat. They make them sleepy. They make them cognitively dull. They make them feel like they're in a fog. They're not pleasant. They're blunt instruments. I think we have to start from as much as, as a family member trying to help our loved one. We know this thing is going to help them, but, it's incredibly frustrating when they refuse to take their medication or refuse to get to continuing treatment. So there are a number of strategies. Empathy is always helpful. It's always important. I'm not trying to preach at anybody here, but just understanding the reasons why people may choose not to take medication is important, because one strategy is to attempt to switch to others. One of the benefits we have now is that we have so many options. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry has been pretty insistent on developing newer, more and more and more medications, some of which have very specific indications, like for perinatal mental conditions. There's drugs for that now. There are drugs for Parkinson's-induced psychosis. There are many different medications that don't have the side effect profile or side effect burden of the older medication. Basically, what I'm saying is we have a choice. You can always work with a provider to try to find something that may be less intolerable. So that's one option. The second option, or another option, is to go for agents that require once-a-day administration, or there are even agents now that, particularly the antipsychotics, you can give them once every 6 months or once every 3 months, the injectables. Those tend to be, it reduces the opportunities for non-adherence. So those will be other things to consider. And the final thoughts, two final thoughts are in many states, Pennsylvania is an outlier, but many states have what you call outpatient commitment laws, which basically means that a person can be compelled to get treatment outside the hospital. In certain very limited circumstances, you can force a person to get treatment, or sometimes you can apply for guardianship. And again, these are there are very stringent rules around that because you're basically completely stripping a person's rights away from them. So, but those are, different avenues to get at the question that you've asked. Your second question is how do we integrate mental health services? How do we make it accessible? Well, there are a number of strategies that have been very helpful. One of those is, what we're doing right now, telehealth. I actually have patients in Nigeria, and there are people, you would never know. You would never know. And my license is active in Nigeria, so we just do telehealth, and we've worked around how to get medications and all of that. So that's one way. Another intervention is to integrate those services within primary care. And this is a strategy that several states have used. I know for sure Lagos State has done it at scale. So there's mental health services all through their local government primary care system. And other states like Imo State, Abia State, I know have done the same thing. So basically what that means is you're not referring people to another clinic. You're not asking them to go make an appointment to the specialist. You're basically saying, you know what, come back to where you get your usual care. And during your appointments, we'll just basically segue you into seeing a psychiatrist right here. So you don't have to go anywhere else. Tends to be more acceptable, tends to avoid stigma because people don't like to go see a psychiatrist because they don't want others to know. So if it's like, oh, I'm just going to my primary care appointment, then nobody knows or nobody knows better. And in fact, there's tele-integrated health. So basically they integrated psychiatry into primary care using telehealth, just as we're doing now. So those are some strategies. The last thought is now there are apps now that are being developed to deliver some level of mental health services, so therapy services, psychoeducation, and so on. Even addiction treatments. There are apps that do that now. So we have more tools than we've ever had before. I'll say the last thing is we have also psychopharmacogenomic screening, or which basically you match your genetics against a panel of medications, and this test tells you which is more likely to help. So we have more tools now than we ever had before. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I see another hand up, Dr. Adie.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation, Dr. Shoshimolu. I always find it, Dr. Shoyinka rather, sorry, I don't mind me. I always try to pronounce your first name right, but I mess it up. Can you tell me how you pronounce your first name, full name, please?
It's pronounced just as spelled, the way you pronounced it the first time.
Oh, excellent. Okay, I got it right. Thank you very much. I mean, everything you said obviously resonates with me. I actually did a bit of psychiatry in England before I switched to internal medicine, and it was interesting. But I'm not going to go deep into that. But it was just a field that was intriguing to me at that time. At some point, I decided to switch anyway because I always wanted to do procedures. But the question I have for you, in this country, you made a point of our children being prone to mental health, some mental health issues in terms of coping strategies and the way the society, the way the society views them and the way they kind of blend in. Um, can you say something more about that in terms of how can we help our children? Let me put it in very simple terms. How can we prevent them from developing, issues like depression or anxiety, as they grow up, as they go to school? As parents, yeah, as parents, what should we be doing? What Somebody's not on mute, actually.
Could
What
you
should
please mute yourself, Miss Scholastica, please?
That was a
Thank
mistake.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry, 1 second. I actually want to
Sorry
put
about
myself.
that.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, sorry.
Go
Yeah, so
ahead.
that's my question really. How do we help them to how do we reduce the chances that would happen? From a parental standpoint, from our side. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I had a foolproof answer for you. The let's break it. Let's dig into this a bit. What are some of the things that increase the vulnerability of our young people? So there's the baseline fact that even setting aside the unique trauma, and it's the right word is trauma of COVID, the unique challenges that, being isolated and so on at that age impose on our children. There are a number of things that young people generally today are having to navigate. So there's a rapidly changing world. Social media has been devastating for our young people. It's difficult for adults, but for young people, it's the evidence is increasing, and it's not conclusive yet, but it's clear that the rise in what's called digital ADHD and anxiety is linked. It's kind of parallels when these devices were introduced and social media became widespread. When you think about it, the reason it's not hard to imagine why, right? Before, when we were growing up, at least when I was growing up, we heard about the genocide in Rwanda, but we heard about it as something that was it didn't touch our lives. It wasn't immediate. It was far away. I mean, it was just East Africa, which isn't that far away from Nigeria, but it didn't seem close to us, proximate to us in any way. We would read about it in the papers days after things happened. And it seemed like this, almost like something that was happening in a dream. But that's not the case for our young people today. From the social media and this ubiquity of these devices makes it that they are inundated with, there are no filters, first of all, right? So they're inundated with images and information that is well beyond the capacity of their developing brains to manage. Our brains were never designed to manage that level of, flow of information. And the sort of immediacy and repetitiveness of that information is overwhelming for them, and it's frightening for them. Then if you add in that they're exposed to all sorts of influences online that oftentimes they don't have the maturity to process, that's also difficult. Add to that the changing societal norms. Add to that, for our children now specifically, that they're having to navigate two identities. At home, we ask them to be Nigerians. In school, they have to be, what are they? We all know the challenges of racism. Racism is alive and well in America. They have to figure out how to navigate that without necessarily the tools and the defenses that we have, then to change societal norms and so on. So those are some of the things that increase their vulnerability. Me personally, at this point, I can't say I've done this with any level of perfection, but honestly, the data seems to suggest that the most important things we can give our kids, we tend to default to education, want to get them to the best schools, get them into the right professions, and those things are very important. But honestly, I think the most important things that we can give them is a sense of themselves. What's called in psychiatry or psychology secure attachment. And it's a sense of of safety, of a place where they can be unconditionally accepted for who they are, without it being dependent on performance. And I think we have to be careful. I will speak for myself, I think we can, because of our upbringing and because we know how harsh the world is outside, we know what they're going to be up against. I think we can very easily slip into performance-based parenting. If you top of your class, then you're applauded. If you're not, there, then, oh, well, okay, we'll manage you, that sort of thing. So I think that, we have to be careful about that. The other things that seem to be protective, quite honestly, if I had to do it again, I didn't do this right the first time because I didn't know. But if I knew then what I know now, I would never give my kids a smartphone until they were 15. I would not. I'd give them a dumb phone and I would severely limit the access to devices. The third thing I think is just being active, you know, sort of orienting them to service, which, I think many of us do. And then sports can be very helpful too, because just being in those, and now sports can be a double-edged thing because there tends to be a lot of drinking and some drug use, can be anyway in certain contexts, but sports can be very protective also. I think if the kids are not athletic, obviously, I don't think they should be forced to do it, but activity is important and engagement. So those are but let me just say one of the biggest antidotes to mental ill health is attachment, is secure attachment. When people are connected to other people and they're secure, it's protective in many ways. Yeah, it's the best I can tell you.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other question? Dr. Njoku, so your hands up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor, for this amazing presentation. You just made a comment that kind of brought up my question. If you could do something differently, you would not give your children phone until they're about 15. And I'm thinking, because that's also, for most of us, we tend to come to this realization when it's a little too late for our own purposes. So I'm thinking with this amazing presentation that you just gave and some of what we know better, what can we do to help, our younger parents, especially in our community? I feel like what you presented needs to be presented even so much more broadly in our community so that more people will get to learn. But then I'm asking, what do you think we can do to help our younger couples to learn and not make the same mistakes that we've already made regarding these facts that you talked about?
I think that's a very good question. How do we do this? One of the challenges is we as Nigerians, we're very individualistic. We want to do it ourselves, right? We want to blaze our own trail. It's admirable because it gives us, we're tough and we're resilient, but sometimes we make mistakes that we don't have to make. The Indians do it differently and the Chinese do it differently. They're much more cohesive and integrated in the way they sort of handle themselves as a community. But that doesn't answer your question. I think, and this is just me thinking aloud here, there are places where we naturally congregate, right? We tend to, for those who are religious or, adhere to a certain faith tradition, people tend to congregate. Historically, churches, mosques, religious organizations have always been a rallying point for us as a people. You see that not just for us as Black people that are newcomers to these shores, but you see that in the Black, African American community as well. You see that with the Latin Hispanic American community. You see that with the Koreans, right? They tend to congregate in their churches or their mosques, their civic organizations. So those are natural opportunities to engage each other in these conversations.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Preparing to leave.
Oh,
Dr.
okay.
Lawrence, you're
not on mute.
All right.
Dr.
You're off mute.
Kelechi, mute yourself, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, if we want to do this at scale, those civic organizations or religious organizations are a place to engage where you tend to have an audience that's willing to listen. But, we also can just adopt a younger couple. Any of us can do that and just mentor them and we're not, there's a proverb that as I've gotten older, I quote a lot nowadays. There's a proverb in my language. It says, no matter how many new clothes a young person has, they will not have as many rags as an older person, which basically means, experience trumps, it's not everything, but, age does tend to give you perspective. So we can always share our experience with younger people. I'm very open with, my lessons learned. Let's just put it that way. So I tell young people who are around me that there are certain things I would do very differently. I just shared one of them. I would not give my kids cell phones until they were 15 or thereabouts. And there are other things that we can advise them on. So those are ways I think to transmit the information. Not perfect. The other reason why I suggest the mentoring approach is because when you try to do, kind of do this mass messaging, doesn't go across as well as if you're in a relationship with people who have grown to trust you and you're kind of doing life together. They may listen, they may listen, and they also can see how you live and some of the and draw lessons from that too.
Thank you so much.
Sure. By the way, I should mention that in the book that I mentioned, there's a whole chapter on wellness strategies. Chapter 6 is all about wellness, and it's all science evidence-based. So I encourage you to check that out.
Can you explain why 15? Age 15 is the age for your cutoff for cell phone.
Yeah, because I think by then, if you think about it, most kids are in high school at that age. They're in their sophomore year. So yes, their brains are still vulnerable, but at that point, they have enough maturity. And, if you really think about it, if I really think about it, before then, what do they really need these devices for? When I gave my son, my kids, their cell phones, they were about 12, and one of the reasons I gave them a cell phone was I wanted to be able to track them. I wanted to know where they were at every point in time. Well, in the time since then, I've done a bit more research and I've discovered there are other devices that exist now. I don't know whether they existed then, but they exist now that they double. It's a watch that doubles as a GPS, that doubles as you can do video calls, as a phone number and all of that. And so I actually got that for our youngest child. He can't play on the computer because it's not a computer, but everything that I needed, that I really wanted from a smartphone, I could get from that watch. So, yeah, but those are the reasons. By 15, they actually do need it at that age because they're working, they're driving, well, not driving, but they're working and they're kind of at their activities more. For them, what do they really need it for, to be honest?
I
And I've
mean,
heard, yeah, go ahead.
just listening to your comment, that was great. But when you have kids that are involved in sports, unfortunately, some of the parents that do that actually do that for communication. like you said, the technology keep refining and advancing, that having the phone, you can actually lock the function on the phone remotely without having any other activity on the phone. And that being said, when you look at the environment we are now, it seems they adore technology. All schools have smart blackboards. They give the kids the laptop, even if you're trying to do it from home. And the kids still exposed to that at the school level. So it becomes something difficult for parents to do it. I think more of the community approach, which some states are already taking the initiative to block, like some TikTok or something that usually lead to other mental issues. And I know, like, having when my kids were little, I know some of the scholastic activity they do is how bullying through the computer. They kind of like expose this kid to it and ask them to write about it. So there are pros and cons. Then it just become more of an individual level, but taking a community approach.
I agree. I would not presume to dictate to anybody. You know, these are very personal choices. Some kids are more mature and they can handle it. Other kids are not. You know, we as adults, I mean, I think if we're honest with ourselves, we still may struggle at points with regulating our own use of our devices, right? Just that the consequences are not as significant. You know, and to your point about locking phones, I've done that, you know, with our oldest child in particular. We had apps on the phone that allowed us to regulate when they could use it and so on. So we've done all of those things. So yeah, one size doesn't fit all. I posted in the chat the special smartwatch that I referenced earlier for those that may be interested in checking it out. But yeah, when you if anybody finds the solution, the one thing that checks all the boxes, I am all ears. I think we're all still figuring this thing out.
So, Madam
Dr.
Chair,
Yefesa.
are we rounding off? Because I
Yes,
think we're
8:56.
coming.
I saw hands up. Dr. Oyefeso just raised his hand.
So I think we are coming to the, are we still have questions?
Just one.
Debbie?
Just one more, then we can round up. Real quick, Dr. Oyefeso.
Yeah, just a quick comment. And thank you, Dr. Shoyinka, for all your good work. I was curious if you guys work with kids, and the other thing I wanted to just mention regarding social media. So anecdotally, we know the reports regarding the effects of social media on mental health for kids. But I just wanted to caution, in general, I think there's an underestimation of the negative impact of it. And it's beyond your child, and maybe your child is mature or not, can handle or not handle. I think it's something that has to be really just handled with care, a lot of care, and to manage their exposure. I personally advocate to try to wait as long as possible before they get on, and even when they do, for you to be fully ready to have all the necessary controls in place. Beyond anecdotes now, there's a heavy body of research that shows the direct negative impact of social media on the lives of kids, the distractibility, mental health issues, and a lot of challenges that come with it. And it's a serious epidemic now, especially in North America, and it's quite sad. And I think that For example, I'm a general pediatrician, and in my practice, part of what I want to start soon is to suggest a social media diet, whereby we just give parents second recommendations regarding how they can regulate the exposure on social media and screen time. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the idea of dose, the dose of really screen time that kids are exposed to is an important idea. To the extent that we can control that, I think it's to their benefit. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Dr. Udo, I think that's the end of the last question. So
Thank you. What a great talk tonight.
Yeah.
3 great speakers for us. And can you all leave your website or where we can support your efforts and your organizations, so we can circulate it? We appreciate you. And also our moderators, we thank you for a great job. Well done. Thank you all. Running back and forth cooking. Oh my. But it's fun. I learn a lot from this. I don't know about you guys. I look forward to this. And I thank you. I think I'm going to make a donation to both organizations, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
So,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair,
Thank you so much.
I think these sessions, at least in my view, because part of the reason for suggesting this is a form of advocacy. We're often looking for somebody else to come and solve our problems when we actually have the people who are more than qualified to solve the problems among us. So this is an effort to make us more aware of those people. And again, listening to our speakers this evening, I'm really kind of encouraged the doggedness of some of these people, regardless of the challenges you see in Nigeria. And that's what is really going to take in order to leverage this diaspora that everybody keeps talking about, is a necessary resource that is going to help in turning not just Nigeria, but Africa around. So we need to do more of this. We need to identify people who are doing things, if nothing, of course, we learn from the experiences they're sharing and stuff, but their commitment, I'm hoping, can certainly inspire more people, because we need more people to be doing this sort of thing. And that's how we're going to get the critical mass. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
So our next speaker, Zoom speaker forum, will be the last for the year, and it's coming up in October. So stay tuned, and we're going to, is that October? Yeah, October.
Okay. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, our third speaker forum. So we're going to end with a bang rather, on that, October. So please, we thank you all for calling in. I hope you all learned something. I did, and I have a good evening. Is there any other person who wants to talk again? Dr. Lawrence, you want to conclude it? Dr. Timmy, where are you?
No, I thought I did, Madam Chair. I thought I did already.
Okay, where is Dr. Timmy? He hasn't said a thing. He hasn't asked any question. I saw when Dr.
Nwankwo, he's been quiet.
Dr. Nwankwo, when we are talking about the pediatrician, I wanted to draw him in, but I said, let him, it's tough to know which one is which anymore. I mean, anymore. The one they're using, the what do you call it? The ample box, the Boston.
Humble bag.
What do you call it? Well, I'm an eye doctor, so when you know, we've left those things many years ago. So I was shocked to learn that this is actually a problem in Nigeria. Okay, that so many infants are dying every day. Gee, but thank you all. Thank you all. Any other comments? If not, I'm cooking obono and okra soup while I'm listening. If you want to taste the best okra soup and obono, head down to my house. Okay.
Thank you very much. This was a great program. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. You
Thank
don't
you
ask
so
questions
much.
if you don't have any. So this is Timmy speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
Good night.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Have a
Everyone,
good
thank you all so much.
Have
Bye.
a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Thank you.